I'm your boogeyman, that's what I am. I'm here to do whatever I can. Be it early morning, late afternoon, or at midnight.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 7 of Fire and Ice Podcast. We are super pumped up today. Extremely well-known guest. He has the record for the most assists in SEC history. He was drafted to the NBA, drafted to Major League Baseball. He's the father of 3, and he was portrayed by Tim McGraw in a very famous movie called The Blind Side. Mr. Tuohy, thanks for joining us.
What's up, Brian?
So we have a great agenda. We want to talk about early on about your high school years at Isidore Newman High School. Would you consider yourself the best athlete that's ever gone there?
Well, I don't know if you'd put me in the 3, being that Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and now little Arch Manning, and then Randy Livingston. So at best, I'm 5. But that's a pretty good 4. Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe I'm 6.
The list.
So it's a pretty good list for a little private Jewish school in Midtown New Orleans. We had 40 boys in our grade, which is about still what they have in each grade. So that's a lot from a little school.
You just mentioned Arch Manning, and I am like all eyes and ears on him. What have you been hearing about the guy, the young kid?
Well, being an Ole Miss alum, we've heard nothing, right? No, you heard the same thing you heard about Peyton. You heard the same thing you heard about Eli. And truth is, when Cooper was 7th grade, he played quarterback too, and he was just as good as the rest of them. And then he switched to wide receiver when he lost feeling in his hand. So it's not a surprise that Cooper's kid is phenomenal, and they'll keep him intact. It's not a sports factory. He'll spend most of his day in school and a little bit of his day on the football field, so he'll stay grounded.
You obviously,
and his daddy, Cooper doesn't take things too serious, and so he'll be fine. But he's good. He's really good.
Yeah, eye-opening.
You obviously know the Manning family pretty well. And if you're going back to high school, who would you want with the football in their hand with 2 minutes left out of Eli, Peyton, or Archie? Who do you trust the most to get down and get a touchdown?
Oh, I think next to Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Well, it's arguably, but I think he's the next best quarterback that's ever been. So it's tough to pick over the 2 Ole Miss Rebels, but be hard to pick. I mean, if you pick it over Peyton, you're obviously showing your bias, which I would. I'm okay with that. But as I told the Mannings when they were being honored, and they're both Peyton, Cooper, and I think Eli all had their jerseys retired, and I said that's really good, but they hung it on the Tuohy gym wall. So
yes,
still got something on them.
Yeah, your father was a famous basketball coach, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Right?
I've always felt, and you guys obviously went to Loyola, so Jimmy Petsos. I always felt my dad and Jimmy were just alike, except my dad had a 93% winning percentage. So could you imagine? But think about it. Could you imagine Jimmy with a 93% winning percentage? It would have been epic. Absolutely epic. Well, that's kind of who my dad was. So we had a good time playing ball growing up because it was the same type atmosphere.
So
Go ahead.
Sorry, you had a nice little team down there in high school. What kind of numbers were you putting up? And, accolades, because obviously you went on to play in the SEC. Talk us about your stats and the kind of team you had.
We always had a nice team. In fact, my senior year was our 100th straight district win. And this is from a team that hadn't had a dunk yet my senior year. And we didn't have one that year either. I think when Randy came, he had a bunch of dunks. But, so it was an interesting deal. We were the highly intellectual, predominantly Jewish school. We didn't have a kid over 6'2", and we beat everybody. So we won 17 or 18 straight district championships, and this publicly, and 100 straight district games. My last 2 years, we won the state championship. Randy won 3. Daddy won 3 before me. So, it's not, the school in Baltimore that wins. I mean, and DC that wins them all, but it's close. With Morgan Wooten.
Yeah, DeMatha.
DeMatha. But it's close. But we were a small school, so it was kind of tough to get games. And we would come into small towns and it would just pack it up. We played, and this is going to test your geography, but you went to a liberal arts school, so you guys should at least know a little.
Yeah.
But if you go to La Rose Cutoff and take a left, you're going to go down Bayou Lafourche, and the last part of land is a town called Galliano, which is where Ed Orgeron's from. More importantly, it's where Bobby Hebert's from. More importantly, it's a 5A school, and we were a 2A school, and I had 26 at half. Whew. And Bobby met me at half. This is true. This is a true story. Bobby Hebert met me. You guys may be too young. Bobby Hebert was a fabulous NFL quarterback. He was an all-pro, played for the Saints, played for a lot of other teams. And he was just an incredible athlete. And he met me at half court. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm walking you to the locker room because if you don't stand beside me, you'll never make it." And that was a true story. And so I only got like 8 in the second half because I wanted to get out of there. And he met me at half court and he said, "We'll just go out the back door." So we played in some pretty dicey places because the city schools wouldn't play us because they didn't want to lose to a little bitty school. We had a lot of success, had a lot of fun. I was, people ask me how I did academically, and I said I had 26.5 points a game.
Yeah, and you were a pretty good baseball player as well, drafted by the Reds, and you were choosing between there and then colleges for basketball. What was the reason why you chose basketball over baseball?
My dream was always to play college basketball on television. Growing up in the South before cable, there was only one televised game. It was called the SEC Game of the Week, and it was huge. And my dad had a stroke in between my freshman and sophomore year, so he couldn't go to games for the most part if it was out of town. So I convinced myself that I really need to go to SEC school because I'd be on television to play back home every once in a while. And LSU, which is, if you grow up in Louisiana, you're in LSU, you want to go to LSU. People who go to different schools other than LSU are the ones that didn't get recruited by LSU. I mean, anybody who LSU wants, they get. And they had a guard named Ethan Martin who was a year ahead of me grade-wise. We were the same age, and we played AAU ball all the way through. And he started for LSU as a freshman. They went to the Final Four. And I sat there when I was looking at schools, and I said, that kid's been better than me since I was 6. Now that I'm 18, I'm not all of a sudden going to get better than Ethan Martin. So I chose out of state. Ole Miss was like 7-22 with 1 point guard my senior year. And I said, God, I could be able to play that place. And when I got there, I didn't really think I could play in that place. And so, things were faster than me. Things were stronger than me. Things were everything than me. And I didn't think I could acclimate. And I caught on a little bit. And, you want stories. Here's a true story. Unfortunately, we're playing at UNC Charlotte, and people who are old like me, this was the year after their Final Four year. So they were fabulous. Maxwell had gone, but they had Chad Kent. They had first-team All-Americans all over the place. The place was 11,000 strong, and I'm 6'1", 146 pounds. I have no business being there. And the only person who knew I wasn't getting in more than me was the head coach. And we had a starting point guard who, was getting clobbered, and he just pulled up the old hamstring injury. He wasn't hurt.
Faked it.
And I went, oh, no, because I'm the next guy. And I remember paying attention because I really didn't want to go in, and the head coach really didn't want me to go in either. In fact, his quote was, "I'll never play that kid as long as I coach." And I was perfectly fine with that.
I have a quick question. While we're in the middle of this, though. How did he recruit you if he didn't want to play you?
Yeah, right.
Was he the one that recruited you, or was it like an assistant? Was it
absolutely? He called me in. He said, "You're 6'1", 148 pounds. I'm embarrassed. I can't put that in the program." I said, "I was 6'1", 135 when you recruited me." I said, "I'm putting on 13." He was an odd egg. He was a Bobby Knight assistant. He was one step below the devil, I would say. But the spread wasn't big. But the assistant coach said, "The kid's tougher than he looks. Trust me, you'll be fine." And I started, 4 years, 121 straight games after that. And averaged, they're 40 minutes in a game. So for 4 years, I averaged 37 minutes a game. Yeah, I got enough of basketball when I was in college.
Yeah, that's LeBron numbers right there.
Well,
even though he didn't go to college.
I would call timeout sometimes and he'd go, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "Because I'm dead." I was afraid I was going to die on the court. I'd rather just die in the huddle.
It's fair. I mean, you played against guys like Barkley and
Oh,
Dominique. Who was your favorite person to guard? And who was the best player you ever played against?
well, I'm going to go a little bit to where y'all may know the best player. I mean, there were a lot of guys I liked to guard because they were terrible, but the best player who I liked to guard, who was really a good player, who I didn't think was any good, was a kid from New York City named Vern Fleming. And Vern ended up playing the Olympic team, 8th pick in the draft by the Pacers. And I was so stupid. There wasn't internet back then. I could barely get by in school. So every ounce of time I had to do was study. So I didn't read up on people, and I didn't know he was any good. I thought he was awful. I mean, I went double on him every time. The guy got picked in the first round. I remember going, wait a second, what happened there? So he was the best player who I liked to play against. But, I mean, I held Macy to 37 twice when he was in Kentucky, and he'd have gotten in the 40s if they weren't up 20 and they took him out. So, he was good. Dominique had 28 on us in the first half in the SEC championship game, but we held him to 4 in the second half and won. And a little bit of trivia there, Stephon Marbury's brother, Eric the Sky Dog Marbury, played for Georgia at that time and shot it we would play defense 4-on-5. I mean, 5-on-4, just so he would get the ball. Because every time he got it, he shot, and Dominique didn't get it. He and Dominique got in a fist fight walking back from the huddle to the court, and I literally had to break it up because we didn't want Marbury to get kicked out of the game. Because he got kicked out, then Dominique would get the ball again. So we were doing some strategery back then.
Were you able to get your shots up at the college level? I know it's close to 30, if not more.
My coach pulled me aside. So I played, I think the 4th game we played UAB or somebody really good and beat them in 4 overtimes. And I took 1 shot, had about 10 assists, played 48 minutes of a 50-minute game. And walking in, he sat down and he said, I like the way you played tonight. Well, I knew I probably wasn't going to lead the team in scoring, any time. So he told the press, he said, I don't mind him shooting as long as he makes it. So
that's fair. That's fun. That's fun
fair.
to deal.
Yeah.
Fun to listen to your coach say.
It was, and so I wanted to play. Every once in a while when we get down 10, there was no shot clock, so you had to shoot quickly. I'd get some shots off, and everybody would go, "Wow, we didn't know you could shoot." I said, "Well, it ain't the fact that I can't shoot; it's the fact that I can't shoot." And so we had a there's such thing as a love-hate relationship. We didn't have the love part; it was strictly just the hate side of it. But I played, so how can you complain?
Yeah, you sound pretty humble right now. You led the SEC all-time in assists, and we're talking about your coach not even liking you.
Oh,
I mean, that's a team-first kind of player, if you ask me. I don't know. Brian, what do you think?
He hated everybody, so it didn't matter.
I think exactly. I was thinking, if you were to come out right now, who would you want to play for in college? What college coach and what program?
A lot of them now. A lot of them. I'd love to play for Shaka Smart because there's no such thing as a bad shot with him. And you don't guard anybody if you think about it. They just literally just put pressure on the ball with 2 guys. So I could never be accused of being a bad defender. So I'd like to play for him. Plus, I think he's a cool dude. Michael White, just because Michael played at Ole Miss when I did. I think he's a great guy. Ole Miss got a great coach in Kermit Davis. Kermit's a kick. Somewhere between Jimmy Patsos and Kermit, there's a cuss word I haven't heard. But they make them up as they go along. And so Kermit would be fun. There's a lot of good coaches out there right now. I think I could obviously play for Tony Bennett just because that was the style that we played. I didn't like that style, but, in high school, we averaged 84 to 100 points a game in a 8-minute quarters. So, I mean, I was used to running up and down the court. I would have loved to have played with the shot clock and the 3-point line because then I'd have been forced to take some shots and I could have showed that I could. But we had some great scorers. freshman, sophomore, and senior year, we had the leading scorer in the SEC on the team, 2 different people. And then in between was a guy named Elston Turner, who's now the assistant coach for the Houston Rockets. Elston's got a great history. Elston was signed by the Bulls so he could guard Michael Jordan in practice. Elston's the best defensive player in the country ever.
Really?
And maybe the coolest guy in the world because he could play the bass guitar in the dorm. Elston was cool. Still is cool. And but he was voted by Sports Illustrated the best defensive player in the country, and he was. And so they kept him on the team to practice against Michael. He was in the Last Dance thing, and that was fun to watch, right?
Hell yes. Absolutely amazing.
So in the middle of that, I was, because Scottie Pippen was my business partner at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty, if you're looking at cool things. And so, when Scottie says, hey, I think we're going to win again. Why don't you come up? No, I'm not going to do it. And so I was at game, 4 and 5. And then they won it in game 6, right? Or they, whatever. I was there for the last 2 in Chicago, one of the ones they lost. And if they'd have won, I was going to the party. I was doing the whole thing. So
what was Scottie like? What was Scottie like?
Cool dude. Scottie's a cool dude. He's a little bit too serious back then for his own good. You got to understand, Scottie went to Central Arkansas as a manager on the basketball team. He was 6'2".
Manager, yeah.
Yeah, right. Except he grew 6 inches his freshman year in college. 3 guys get hurt, and he's the manager on the bench. And they say, can you just fill in for us? Kind of like Luke, right? Same thing. Except Scottie went on to be the 5th pick in the draft, and not so much for Luke. But that's how – so Scottie was late to basketball when you really think about it. And when he got to the Bulls, he was so intent on being so great that he wasn't really enjoying the process. I don't think he understood Michael as much as he should have. But he was good. Scottie was so good and nicest guy in the world.
Amazing. You know what we're going to do right here? We're going to split it up a little bit. We're going to do a fire round, and it is brought to you by the Taco Bell Diablo sauce.
Nice.
So we're going to just do quick rapid fire questions. Brian's going to start. We're going to go back and forth, 10 questions real quick. That's how we're splitting up the interview right now.
And
so
first
just so you know, I get handicapped because I took 3 charging files from Charles Barkley. 2 of them I remember. The third one I saw in film.
Fair.
So I have a little bit of memory recall issue every once in a while.
That's
fair.
fine with us.
Thank you.
All right. Who's your NBA comparison? Who'd you play like?
Well, I mean, people are going to say John Stockton, but that's not fair. That's not fair to John Stockton. I mean, because if he was a 10, I was a 3. I've seen a lot of guys that I think I play like. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm gonna go with John Stockton until I think of that's my Charles Barkley factor coming in. So in about 8 seconds, when I Rain Man you a good question, a good answer, you'll know what it is.
Yeah. What about baseball? Who's your comparison?
Dave Concepcion. Y'all don't even remember him, but Sean Jr., my son, SJ is SJ because of Cal Ripken Jr.
Wow.
I just thought that was the coolest thing when his daddy coached and Cal Jr., they called him Junior, Cal Jr. And I said, SJ, that's who you named after. He didn't care. He thought it was BJ Armstrong, and that's why he went with SJ. His middle name could have been a Q, and he still would have gone with SJ because of BJ Armstrong.
Love it.
Favorite Taco Bell meal?
Well, it depends if my wife's with me or not.
She's not there. You can eat anything you want.
Oh, geez. Starting out with a pizza. If I can eat in-house. So if I can eat in this restaurant. So COVID's over. I'm allowed to go in the restaurant. And I'm eating in my restaurant. I'm going to put a little hot sauce on a pizza. And then if she's not coming, like I don't see her for like 3 days, then I'm going with our brand new grilled cheese. And then I'm done. I'm in the bed for an hour nap easily.
Wow.
And I'm paying. By the way, I pay when I go, and it drives my whole family crazy.
I have a question. How do you think that Tim McGraw did playing you in the movie?
So they took a year and a half, 2 years to cast my wife. Every girl in the world came through, it was written for, well, it was bought by 20th Century Fox for, I can't remember, the girl in Pretty Woman.
Julia Roberts?
So they bought it for Julia Roberts. And she, after a year, turned it down. So then they brought everybody in. They settled on Sandy. Well, the day of shooting is when they casted me with Tim. Shows you how important I was to that movie.
I heard they were down to Brad Pitt, Matthew McConaughey, and Tim McGraw.
No. I think it was me. Like, I'm not in the movie at all. Or, well, heck, we'll just get Tim to play him because no one will care. And Tim called me. Now that we're first name basis, me and Tim, and he said, hey man, this is Tim. I said, all right, I'll bite. Tim who? And he said, Tim McGraw. I went, yeah, okay. And it really was, right? So it really was. And he said, we'll start shooting today. I'm gonna play you. I said, well, that's really cool. I said, can you do something for me? He said, anything. I said, sometime in the movie, take your shirt off. I said, because people who don't know me may think I look like that, right?
Hey, why not? Go for it.
That's a win. Now, it's a big disappointment when they see me on this wonderful Zoom cast. They're going to go, oh, man, I only got on because I thought I'd look like Tim. Well, I don't. But again, a nice guy. He did a great job. He stayed out of the way, which is kind of what I do.
So I didn't even mention earlier that we're going to get into it more, but you're an NBA announcer. Did you have a tagline, like your favorite go-to phrase? Mike Breen has bang.
So here's how my NBA announcing career started. Here's how it went through 15 years, and that's probably why it finally ended. I was sitting minding my own business, counting up sales at 99 cents a piece. Phone rings, and it's one of the executives from the Grizzlies, and they said, we heard you did some CBS work. I did some Ole Miss work only because the coach asked me to do it, because it was Rob Evans, who was still one of my favorite people in the world, and just a wonderful man, great coach. And he was turning it around, and he thought if I came down there and told everybody that we're close, that they wouldn't fire him. And so I said, I'll do that just for 1 year, because they probably would have, and they shouldn't have, because he was such a great coach. And he ended up winning the conference. I mean, they had Keith Carter and SEC. They had a monster run there, about 5 years, where they either won or came second in the SEC every year. In fact, they were a third seed the year Bryce Drew hit the last second shot. That's played every single solitary year on the NCAA.
Without a doubt.
They might have gone pretty far in that tournament, because they were really good. So I did some Ole Miss work, and then CBS called, and I hate it. I mean, I have a hard time being interested in a game where I don't care who wins. So CBS would send me to all these conference championships because I'd won a conference championship. They thought that was cool. And it was, Kansas against Oklahoma. Like, I really care who won that, So I just finally said, no, I don't want to do that, and just stop bothering me. And they did. Well, 2 years later, the Grizzlies called. CBS must have said, because they called and said, whoever was supposed to do the broadcasting for the Grizzlies didn't come down from Vancouver, or couldn't get his green card, or whatever, because they called me on the day of the first game. Since I was 16, I'd been to 2 NBA games. And so I was 15 years ago, I was 40 years old. Well, actually, now it's 20 years ago, because I was 40 years old about when they got him. I'm 60 now. And so they said, we'd like you to do the games. I said, okay, well, that's not really what I do. He said, well, can you help us out? We don't have, blah, blah, And so my wife was sitting there. She says, you're doing it because SJ can get in the locker room. No one cared what I had to work. Everybody wanted access. And it was their first game ever in Memphis. And so I went down to it was the Pyramid back then, and they handed me my contract during warm-ups. It was like 2 pages. And I remember going, you're going to pay me this? Are you crazy? First of all, I suck. I said, second of all, this is more than I've ever made in my whole life. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And so I was only going to do home games on the radio. Halfway through the season, they asked me if I'd go on the road. Obviously, they never intended to keep me, is what the point was. And then every year, they either added games, and then I went in, because SJ was starting to play like 6th grade basketball, and I said, I'm done. They said, well, we want to move you to TV. So then I had to do TV for 8-9 years, which is an obscene amount of money, by the way. Just, it's crazy.
We got to get into that.
It's so stupid. I mean, I'm just going, most people would do it for free. but they did. So, people give you money, you take it. So I wasn't really like the professional radio guy or TV guy because I really didn't want to do it. I had to keep doing it because my wife wanted for all the players to tell her hello and coaches and then we had a great group of players. I got there when Pau Gasol got there, and what a super guy. One of the nicest. The only person maybe nicer is his brother Mark. I mean, those two. So we had my favorite guy on the team was Jason Williams. Oh, first, other than Pete Maravich, who was my favorite player ever, and maybe the best player I've ever seen playing college. Jason was the best ball handler I've ever seen. So talented, and always called you by your name, and always answered your questions. I love Jason Williams. And people go, your personality and his don't match at all. Well, they do more than you think. He's just, he's got some issues, but none of them were being nice to people. He was always nice to people. I love Jay. We had some good guys. And so, I just 1 year turned into two, and then 16 years later, SJ was at Loyola, and I pared it down to like 20 games a year. And so the guy who was doing 70 games said, man, I got to do this other 20. And I said, please don't throw me in that briar patch. So I think SJ's senior year, I didn't have to do games. Maybe not. I think I still was doing it.
There were so many tough guys on those Grizzly teams, the grit and grind. Who's somebody that we'd see as a big tough guy? Maybe it's Tony Allen, Zebo, or somebody that's kind of like a softie on the inside that you can kind of just sit down and hang with.
Well, Tony's not a softie anywhere. Anywhere. And OJ Mayo wouldn't pay his gambling debt one time on an airplane, and OJ missed the next game, and it was flu-like symptoms, but it was a black eye and a broken nose.
Oh, really? Was it on the
plane? Oh, yeah. So that only one person didn't pay Tony his card game money. That never happened again. Tony was a tough dude. In inner city Chicago, Tony was great. We had Stromile Swift, who was the nicest guy, that's so talented, but just had no concept of what he was supposed to do. But he did it, and he was a pretty good player. And he was the Stroh show. And, remember Tony Massenberg played at Maryland. Tony was a good player. Tony was a really good player. But we had some great players come through. And then, I broadcasted a couple of 50-win years, 55-win years. We had some good players, good coaches. Jerry West was the GM for a while. So, they took it real serious. They took it real. I didn't. And I did. It was kind of a funny thing. I didn't fit in the whole world. Here's a little behind the scenes that you won't get from anyone else. So write this down, Luke.
Exclusive.
Right here, Luke. Luke, right here.
Yeah, I got this one. I'm writing it down. All
right. All NBA teams fly on charter. Some teams have their own airplane. Some there's like Northwest, one of those has like 10 set up for the NBA if you don't have your own. And you enter from the front, and you're not allowed to move forward in the airplane, meaning that the front part of the airplane is the players, the middle part are the coaches, and the back part of the low totem pole people like me. And you're allowed to go back, but you're not allowed to go front. So, like if a coach wanted to talk to, Zach Randolph, he would have to send the trainer, because the trainer's the only one who could go forward. And so he'd tell the trainer, hey, tell Zach I want to talk to him. And Zach wouldn't, because he was super dude, but we're using him as an example. But he'd go, nah, I don't really want to. And the coach he couldn't go forward, couldn't go see him.
Wow.
So we being in the back were as far away from the players as ever. But I was such an anomaly to them, because sometimes I'd take my own airplane to games. And so, they'd go, man, can I ride back with you? And I go, it's not an option. You can't ride back with me. And so they would come back and sit with me and, trying to figure out, how this overweight, slightly bald guy who doesn't look like he's athletic ended up where I am, And so I had some great conversation. One guy signed a big deal, a big deal. I'll never forget, sat next to me, and he goes, look, I think I've got some ends on some real estate, and I get some LOIs. It's close to Walmart's, and, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that? I said, well, I think that yesterday you were just a dumbass three-year player in the NBA who could really play. And now you're the same person but rich. I said, that money didn't make you smart. The money only made you rich. So here's what you should do. Put it in the bank and don't worry about it. And he'd come back for that beating every day. And so I had some great plane trips. Pal would come back and show me what famous model he went out with. It was good times. Surprisingly, the NBA, if you're I don't know, if you're kind of negative on the NBA, they play hard every second of the game. They take it very, very serious. The players do own the process. I mean, the coaches are there to hand out minutes, but they take it. I mean, it's not like let's pace ourselves and play hard the last 2 minutes. It's not the way it is. These guys, they play really, really, really hard. The problem I had with the NBA is losing was always tough on me. I had from sixth grade to my senior year in high school, I only lost 3 games. So I didn't take losing very well. Well, in the NBA, you have to, because, think about it. A real good team's going to lose 30 games.
Yeah.
50, 52 and 30s, 82 games, and you're 3 seed. Or in the East, you could be a 1 seed. In the West, you could not be in the playoffs.
Right.
So, like Mark Gasol, when he got to the NBA, man, he used to take losing so hard. And I'd sit there and I'd go, man, Mark, you can't worry about it because we're playing in Detroit tomorrow, So that's the only thing that people, I guess, get the wrong feeling in the NBA when the game's over. The guys don't, go on their knees and cry because that game's over and you've got, depending upon what part of the season, you still got 60 games left. So they play hard. They're for the most part, good dudes. I had a great time. I was really glad when I stopped. But yeah, so I was a reluctant, NBA announcer, which there's only 31 of those jobs in the world. And I had one for 15 years and didn't want it for any of those 15 years. So I'm not the guy you bring to the job fair and go, tell us about how you got to be the NBA announcer. Do something that you really didn't ever want to do. And that was me. But I had a blast, absolute blast.
I was just going to – go ahead.
Oh, sorry. One guy I just really want to hear about is Allen Iverson. He didn't
got an answer.
And
So we picked up Allen after it was over, right?
yeah.
Our owner literally signed Allen Iverson without telling the general manager. So he shows up. They give him a Gibson guitar because the Gibson factory was next door. And he shows up hurt. He had a little pulled hamstring, but not badly. So he didn't play in the preseason. And Lionel, what was Lionel play? He's coaching the NBA. Lionel Hollins. Lionel Hollins is our coach. Lionel's a tough dude now. Lionel didn't take anything from anybody, and he played that way. Lionel's a tough booger and he didn't think Allen was good enough to play, so he hardly played him. And we were out in Sacramento, when you're the Grizzlies back then, because we were the furthest most East team in the Western Division, so we had long road trips. We'd take a 12-day road trip. But think about this now. We got $150 cash a day. So a 12-day road trip probably took 14 days. And so I got on the plane and they're giving you like $1,700. And I'm going, who's got this much money in the world? And it was their horse money. But it was, my wife would go, how much did you get? I want 80% of that coming back. FJ, we got to get him a new car or something. And so Allen Iverson shows up, and I'd never met him. And we play Sacramento. We beat him on the last second of the game, hit a shot, when our sideline guy, Rob Fisher, super guy's in the locker room, and Allen got to play a little bit. And he said, now, Allen, it's a true story. And our sideline guy was his first year, so it was like his 7th game ever. And he goes, Allen, great game, good win for the Grizzlies. Tell me how your hamstring is. So help me, you can look it up. He tells Rob Fisher, first-year sideline guy, in the locker room, he says, homie, it ain't my hamstring that hurts. It's my ass that hurts for sitting on the bench so damn long.
Wow.
And of course, Rob walks away and says, please tell me you got that. Please tell me you got that. So he and Lionel had a little bit of a discussion. So the next day we're playing in, I guess LA. We're playing in LA. We always played the Clippers and the Lakers back to back, and I got to spend 5 days at the Beverly Hills Wilshire about twice a year. It was unbelievable. And so I get on the elevator going to a production meeting about 11 o'clock in the morning. Stephen Hunter, who was on the team, big 6'11" kid from DePaul, super nice, real quiet. And I don't, these are new kids. I mean, they hadn't been there 7 games into it. I hadn't even met them. And I'm on the elevator, and he turns to me, he says, he gone. And I said, Stephen, who you talking about? He said, he gone. I said, who's gone? He said, AI. I said, all right. Is he like miss shoot around or, is he not going to make the team meal? He said, no, he gone. I said, what do you, he said, no, he's gone. All he said. So I said, like he does, he's not, no, he's gone. I said, does anybody know this? He said, nope, I'm telling you. I said, I'm not the guy. He says, that's all I'm telling him. So I got off the elevator, and in 3 hours, Allen Iverson was going to show up for the bus. So I went to the production meeting and said, what do we do? And so they took it, and, he was gone, never showed up again.
Really?
So
Crazy.
I was told by Stephen Hunter 2 words, he gone. And we never saw AI again. So I never even got to meet him.
Oh my God! So we have a pretty good our producer. We call him Super Producer Luke. He was scouring the internet and he found out that you're a big sneakerhead. So we want to know, what was the last pair of sneakers you got?
Duh.
And I found that out because if you follow Mrs. Tuohy, sometimes she's putting stuff up about you and your sneakers. So it's her fault.
Well, I got a double order the other day. I refuse to get delivered shoes without one of them being a Sketcher. I'm the Sketcher guy. I'm 60 years old. I'm the Sketcher guy.
Okay.
Got 120 pair minimum.
Wow.
Minimum. Now, you buy one, you get 6 free. It's one of those, you can't walk out of the store with a $200 bill with 8 pair. I just start raking them in and figure if they don't, I give them away. So I've got hundreds of Skechers. So but I got I think they're Nike 280s.
Okay.
Is that a shoe? I just got a red, white, and blue pair the other day, brand new, hot off the press. So that's one of the more recent ones I got.
And we've talked about baseball, we've talked about basketball. Now, something that your family is really known for is football. Your recruiting process compared to your son Mike's recruiting process.
Yeah.
What was that like? Were there any similarities or?
No, Michael's was condensed into about 4 months, and it was literally after his junior year. These days you've committed and decommitted 7 times by the time you're a junior, and he was one of the top 3 guys in the country. So you would have thought that, but he was such a late bloomer that nobody recruited him. I don't think he got an offer. I think Oklahoma was his first offer, and he was there with a bunch of kids from school on a little, boys club trip or something. It wasn't a football. He went and took a bus. He called me from Memphis because he always said, I'm going to go to Oklahoma. And I said, well, good. Go on this little trip. So when he got to Little Rock, he said, we're already Little Rock. We're almost there. I said, how long take you to Little Rock? He says, 3 hours. I said, well, add about 5 more of that, then you'll get to Norman. Ooh. And so he said, well, I'm not going there. I said, that's my point. So he took a visit to NC State, took a visit to Ole Miss, took a visit to LSU and Tennessee, and that was it. And he didn't like the visits. He was studying 6 hours a day. The recruiting process for Michael was over before it started. And we made his high school coach do it because I didn't think it's fair for, the coach from Alabama to come into our house, although I guess Nick was at LSU then. So Nick came to the house when he was at LSU. And he might have gone to LSU if Nick would have stayed there because we were such good friends with Nick. And, but, I didn't think that – I wanted to make sure they knew they had an even shot at him. And if I'm sitting there, Land's sitting there, SJ sitting there, because SJ bothered every damn one of those coaches. way worse than the movie portrayed. You guys know him. You can well imagine. And so he did most of his recruiting through the high school coach. And but it was easy because it was so late. And he wasn't that obsessed about it, and he was so good that it didn't matter. So we just kind of got out of the way.
You said you're close friends with Nick Saban. I actually I saw the Christmas card when I was over at the house from him.
Oh, did you?
But is he, computer's always on? Is he always in football mode?
Worse. He is the most focused human being in America. Now, if he's playing golf, he's focused on that, but he never bleeds over. He's single-minded, focused human being, and he's the greatest college football coach ever, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It'd be hard to argue with it because he's done it at 2 schools, and the only thing that prevented him from doing it at 3 schools is he hadn't gone to the 3rd school because he'd do it there.
Yeah, they have the appropriate amount of statues for him in Alabama.
Exactly. So, he's and let me tell you, he's great to play for. He's horrible to work for, from what I hear, because he's so demanding. Kids love him because he's straight up. He treats everybody just about the same. But he, to me, he's the greatest college football coach ever.
I agree. So Mike's time at in Baltimore. We're Baltimore's guys. I know you came on with the Loyola pants. What was it like on that Super Bowl run, and when Mike got into the NFL?
We were so true story when he got drafted by Baltimore. Actually, we thought he was playing for the Colts, and we were really Beverly Hillbillies at the draft, and he got drafted in the slot that the Patriots had, and I went, yay, we're going to the Super Bowl every year. And Michael kept going, no. I said, yes, you're going to the Patriots. And Michael's got the NFL on the phone, and I'm going, I never did figure out how he ended up with the Ravens. But the funny story with Michael being drafted, my best friend in the world lives in Baltimore, Kurt and Gene Arsan, in the Taco Bell business. A little plug for them in Baltimore. Well, they got to talk to Michael for 20 minutes before, Bisciotti, whoever the GM was then, and anybody from the Ravens. Ozzie didn't get to talk because he was talking to Kurt. Every time they called Michael's phone, it was busy because Kurt got to him before anybody else did. So, Kurt called all the Ravens guys and said, hey, I just talked to Michael. They said, where is he? We're trying to talk to him. He says, well, I got him on the phone right now. So it kind of started off that way, and it kind of went through. We had fun time in Baltimore. Baltimore Ravens take it real serious. When he was there, they were focused on winning the Super Bowl. It was very impressive how they did it. They didn't really care about the family, which is fine because I wasn't going to play, right? So They focused on the kids. And they were good. Joe was a great quarterback. Ray Lewis owned the locker room. And in the NFL, that's important. It's very important. One game in the NFL makes a difference when, so much parity, 9 and 7 will get you first place sometimes. 8 and 8 will get you out. So owning the locker room when you had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, if you're a rookie, we asked Michael about something. Did you tell somebody that's something? He says, let me just tell you something. I'm a rookie. You got to know your role. And we said, okay, we got it. So, it's good teams. Fans are tough. The sports media, I never did understand why they hated a team that was so good, made up of so many good guys. But I guess it was cool that, they booed Michael all the time, which I never did understand. He didn't miss a down for 5 years, played every single game, switched from left tackle to right tackle 3 times because one of them got hurt. And I remember asking Michael, I go, is that hard, to switch from left tackle to right tackle in the middle of the game? He says, well, it's like telling you to switch in the middle of a golf round from playing right-handed to left-handed. And I don't think the Ravens ever really protected Michael enough to say, he may have jumped off sides, but you got to understand, we just moved him And now instead of kicking with his left foot, he's kicking with his right foot and reaching with his right hand. He said, we just destroyed that poor kid. And he's a champ doing it. So he had some really good years. He really got along with the team. He hated to leave. And then circa a couple years later, when he was with the Panthers, of course, they go to the Super Bowl too, because I love to say that, the Ravens kind of got rid of Michael, and Michael's been to the Super Bowl before they have when they got rid of him. Just saying, not that I'm sour.
Facts are facts.
Facts are facts, right. Facts don't lie.
Exactly.
And he played left tackle the whole year. But the Panthers were a little bit more surprised by getting there, and so they were still friendly family-wise, so they were kind of more fun. But that's not a knock on the Ravens, because they're a professional, well-run, incredible organization. And it seems like they're back now. They've been down for a long time when you think about it. Michael had some really good years. And, 4 out of the 5 he went. 3 out of 5 went to the division championship. Went to Super Bowl. Never had a losing season, and he never missed a down. So it was fun. SJ being there the last couple of years was even better. My friend, Kurt and Gene Arsen there. That was great. So we had a great time. Got to play Caves Valley golf a couple times.
Yeah.
I tell you, that's
Very
serious
nice.
golf. That's serious. So we loved Baltimore. We had a great time, but we loved Charlotte when he was there. I love that he's not playing because he needs a rest.
I think him playing in Baltimore while SJ was there led to a lot of fun for a lot of SJ's friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people got to enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know how much fun Michael had, but I know SJ had a blast.
Yeah,
Michael playing.
I would say so. Of Mike's teammates in the pros, was there anybody that stood out that you have specific stories about, whether it's Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, any of those guys that you?
Well, his best friend in the world is Marshall Yonda. He just thought Marshall was the coolest guy because he played so tough and he was fair. Marshall always had your back. And in the NFL, that's not always the case. And so he loved Marshall. He loved Joe Flacco. He said Joe was one of the toughest guys he's ever met. Yeah. And Joe liked Michael a lot. So that was fun, because the kids got along. Ray Lewis was obsessed with The Blind Side.
Really?
And, back then, you could imagine it was on all the time. And I'll never forget, I was at Michael's house and his phone buzzed and he said, "When is that movie going to stop?" And I go, "Why?" He says, "Because every time on, Ray Lewis sends me a picture of him on The Blind Side on the last thing." He said, "Oh, greatest movie. Look at me. I made the movie." He says, he's got to stop texting me. So that was nice because Ray would be nice to us too. And the people at the stadium, the help and stuff were so nice. It's such a nice, easy place to get to stadium wise. But fans are tough. They're tough on the players, which I never understood. But look, you're making a lot of money. You pay me $15 million a year. You can boo me all you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler made a career out of it.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Ice, you have any other questions?
I have one more question. Obviously, because across so many sports, if you had one team that you need to guarantee a victory, or else you can't sleep that night, what team keeps you up the latest at night? Whether it's Ole Miss basketball, football, Ravens, Grizzlies.
Like I need a win.
You need a win, like for your own emotional satisfaction.
Oh, it's Ole Miss football.
It is.
Yeah, because there's just 12 games.
Mhm.
So
Fair.
everyone's so important. And they're obviously not very good right now, but when Coach Freeze was there, who coached Michael in high school, and he was the head coach at Ole Miss, we were really good. When you beat Alabama back-to-back and have them down 20 at halftime the third year, you got a good football team. And so I was so emotionally involved because I knew the coach, I knew a lot of the players, and it would keep me up. If we lost, it hurt. It really hurt. Now, hopefully we're on our way back, so it hadn't really hurt that much for a while. But yeah, now that Kermit's coaching Ole Miss basketball, pretty intense with that. Let me tell you, the most exciting, best event in the entire world is Ole Miss baseball, and they're good as crud.
Really?
They average they average 9,500 a game.
Woo.
They outdrew their A's in a weekend series last year. Well, 2 years ago, because they averaged 12,000 a game. They are seriously good. They finished the year last year ranked number 1, but of course the season was cut off. And go Google right field beer garden, Ole Miss. And it is the coolest. When a guy hits a home run, all the students, thousands of them in the right field, have to throw their beer up in the air or whatever's in the cup. And it's all at one time. And it's the coolest thing you've ever seen. So Ole Miss baseball is cool. But, I cheer for a lot of teams. I mean, I've watched more replays of Texas State high school football. To me, it was live, right? Because I didn't know who won. So any kind of football, I like watching. I got to play. Well, I wasn't as, professional and wonderful at a basketball and European as Luke was, but I got to play European basketball too. And a real quick story to finish it. I was playing in Bologna, Italy, in front of 35,000. It was a 14 tournament, the local team, a Yugoslav team, and then Scavallini Pasario, which I thought was a Czechoslovakian team. I'm not sure, but they were one of the EuroLeague teams. And us. We were a USA All-Star team. We were good. And Roy Hinson was there, played with the Philadelphia 76ers. We had some good players, some really good players. And we were playing – first night we played Scavallini, and they had a guy named Dragan, Dragon, Kicanovic, starts with a K. And he was the best thing since Pistol Pete I'd ever seen.
Really?
The best thing I'd ever seen. He was phenomenal. Then the next night we played against Drazen, Drazon, Petrovic, who obviously played for the New Jersey Nets, who had an incredible NBA career until he was tragically killed. And so I was in the locker room. That's a lie. I was in the media room. They feed you before the game. The media people do. Well, sometimes the players come in and grab a snack or something like that. And my buddy Elston was coaching Sacramento at the time. And they had Ido Turkoglu and Peja Stojakovic on the team. And my buddy Elston was sitting there. And Elston was saying, man, who's the best European guy you played against? And I said, well, I played against Drazen and Kicanovic. Boy, those guys sat up because they were both Yugoslav. And they both sat up and they went, you played against both? I said, yeah, I sure did. And they said, which one was better? And I went, oh, Kicanovic was better than Drazen easily. And it got dead silent. And Elston turned to me and he said, are you crazy? Like, Petra's like their hero, and he said, you're going to get killed by one of these guys. So all of a sudden, I didn't know, I mean, they're in the Civil War over there. I think I picked the wrong side. I mean, I am going to get killed in the media room in Sacramento by Peja Stojakovic. And so I'm keeping an eye on him and Turkoglu, and everybody says bye, and Elston says good luck. And so and Stojakovic leans in my ear and he says, Drazen was better. And walked away. And I almost went, yeah, he was. So I almost got killed over a Drazen and a Dragan. But I'm the one guy who's played against both those guys. And now that I know which one to say. But Dragan Kicanovic may have been the best player I'd ever played against, including Dominique, Barkley, Macy, all those guys.
Wow.
So, and I guarded him. And it did pretty good. I mean, I was pretty happy with what I did against him. But, he was obviously a lot better than I was. So that's my last NBA story.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to meet you. Brian, final thoughts?
I'm all good here. I'm all questioned out, but I really appreciate you coming on, Mr. Tuohy.
Seriously, thank you so much for your time.